in cross country and track with Adams State as well.
Yeah, that's a big rivalry there. When you're running at 7,700 feet, that's a huge advantage in an endurance sport like cross country. I mean, I don't know how many
Cross
Olympians
country and track with.
and national champs between Adams and Western. I mean, there's a ton of Olympians in cross country there.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm curious, you've been out this way for over a decade now, yeah?
Yeah, well, yeah, right at about 10 years. Moved here in 2014, and yeah, it's been great.
Do you miss the mountains?
I don't miss the cold. I
Okay.
don't miss the cold. I really like the South. I like the people here. I like that it's a little bit slower pace, and the weather here is awesome. Outside of today, where it was a little rainy, weather here you get 4 seasons. It doesn't get real cold, and yeah, no, I like I said, I enjoyed my time at Western, but those winters there, they'll get to you pretty quick.
Yeah. How long being in South Carolina did it take for you to I mean, obviously with the coaching and stuff, you kind of hit the ground running and that kind of takes over a lot of free time and that sort of stuff. I'm curious for myself, I've been here for about a year and a half. How long did it take for you to kind of adjust to feel like, okay, now I'm a Southerner?
It's funny. I was deer hunting like the first week I moved to town. I was already deer hunting, and my neighbor, when we moved to Newberry at the time, he did competitive barbecues, so he got me into the competitive barbecue and college football and deer hunting, and it didn't take too long.
Awesome. Awesome.
Coach, you said you wanted to get out of Colorado because it was a little cold out there, but I'm pretty sure that you spent some time in Arizona, back where I believe you grew up in Arizona, and you started the program out at Grand Canyon. And then, you were at Newberry and then you went to Lander.
Correct.
Curious what you took with you from being at Grand Canyon as far as starting a program, and what things that you try to implement when you went to Lander, and things you thought, I didn't do a good job with this, I'm not going to implement this.
Yeah, that's a really good question. The biggest thing I took was just the experience of doing it. I was hired as a head coach at 24 years old, and essentially, the athletic director said, he threw the NCAA rules book at me and said, "Okay, now go get us 40 kids, and you have 1.5 scholarships." So I learned to do a lot. I learned to be resourceful. I learned to hustle, learned to network. I mean, but really, I mean, I learned to do it all myself. I didn't have a lot of help until a few years in. So really, just the experience of actually starting a program from scratch, and the things I learned is it's really getting the type of kids you want. And we had some great kids at Grand Canyon, had a lot of success there, but I knew with Lander having a chance to do it all again, there was a very specific type we were looking for. And, I was also fortunate from being out west to build up a huge network over the years that literally it stretches coast to coast. If you look at our roster, I think we've got kids from 20 different states here. And so I knew I could probably bring a national level presence in terms of the network and the recruiting to the program here at Lander, and have success pretty quick.
Well, you bring up having kids from 20 states, but before we hopped on the call, you were saying that the state of South Carolina is growing as wrestling as far as high school and college. Do you find yourself still reaching outside of the state as much, or are you getting more kids in the state?
Really both. I think probably if you look at our roster, we do have a good sized roster. We have about 50 guys on the team. I would say we were probably pretty evenly split, 25 in state, 25 out of state.
And talking about the recruiting from around the country and having national prominence. I mean, the program is relatively new at Lander, and you guys have climbed up the ranks pretty quickly. And I think even as of right now, as we speak, you guys are ranked second, yeah?
Yeah, number 2 in the country.
And
yep.
you finished second last year, and you were coach of the year. You had a rookie of the year as well. What is it that's gotten that quick, because we see what's going on at Little Rock too with Coach Ersman and that, meteoric rise. How do you get the kids to buy in that quick and they be so successful so quick? Because you see some programs where it's like continually
Yeah.
going, and then other ones like the guys buy in and you're off and running. Is there one particular thing, or is there a bunch of things that have allowed that to happen so quickly?
No, I think it's a lot of things. I think one of the biggest thing is staff. We're very positive, very enthusiastic. I read a book on leadership, and one of the biggest takeaways was just a small quote in it. It says, "Enthusiasm is a force multiplier." And just think how many times people show up to work or show up to a job and they're just checking a box, as opposed to a staff, a team, a program of guys that show up that are excited, that are energetic, that are really relentlessly attacking something that most people don't get a chance to achieve. And when you put that together with, like I said, with a staff, to your team captains, to your team leaders, eventually that trickles down. And now, just being a part of the program, everybody's on board. Everybody's rowing the boat the same direction. And that's really important.
You talk about enthusiasm, and that's something that I like to bring to work and to physical education with the kids and the athletes. Do you have anything on one of those maybe particular days where you're not feeling as enthusiastic that reminds you to be enthusiastic?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, but it's your job as a coach. You really control and you dictate the pace and the energy and the attitude of the room by how you show up every day. And the biggest thing, and something we stress here to our guys, is we're very lucky to be able to do this. We're very, as coaches, to be able to work with these young people and help mold them and shape them and help them pursue their goals. I mean, that's a very, very fortunate career that I get to do. And the more you show that gratitude and you show how grateful you are to work with these guys every day, that rubs off on them. And now all of a sudden they're showing up to practice and they're not dreading a 2 hour workout. They're grateful that they've got healthy minds and healthy bodies that allow them to do this. Very few people get a chance to wrestle at the college level, and even fewer get a chance to be on a team that can legitimately compete for a national championship. So when you look at that big picture and that gratitude hits in it, man, hey, I'm pretty lucky to be here and be a part of this. All of a sudden, things really start moving in the right direction.
I agree with you, Coach. That really was the change of my wrestling when I was in college, was having that gratitude, because I took some time off and then went back to school and wrestled. And I had that gratitude that I wasn't working that job, that I was in the room. So that was definitely a changer for me. One thing that you brought up, you said you got 50 kids on the roster.
Yeah.
And we all know there's only 10 spots on a wrestling team. How do you keep those other 40 kids enthusiastic? How do you maybe recruit more than one kid in a weight class and have those kids still stay on task and still striving to be the best versions of themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not one thing. It's really important when you're recruiting somebody. You're very upfront with them on, how many guys you got on the roster and what you see their role being the first year, the first couple of years, and ultimately you've got your 10 starters, but realistically you're going to have 10 pretty solid backups too. So there's 20, probably going to redshirt 10 to 15 guys that first year. So now you're at 35, and you're going to have a few local guys that are just from the area that want to be a part of the team. And so it's really important just to be upfront and honest in the recruiting process of what we see their role being. And also, it's just as important to have those supportive teammates and those backups and those guys that are in there pushing the varsity guys, because I mean, this last week was the first time all season long we had all 10 starters in the lineup. So, you understand more than anybody, we're not playing golf here. I mean, it is a rough sport, and injuries take guys out and sicknesses take guys out. I mean, we go right through cold and flu season. Skin infections take guys out. Eligibility stuff can take guys out. So you've got to have guys waiting in the wings when, your starter, your A guy goes down. And so that's part of it as well.
I'm curious to what the mindset is when you don't have your full roster till, a week ago, and we're a lot through the season, how you stay positive and how you kind of say, all right, it doesn't matter till February and March, till those last couple of weeks of the season. How do you stay focused when things might not be going the way you want them to go, but the full team isn't at capacity yet?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just to kind of calm the mind of the athletes. They're going to worry and they're going to stress out way more than us as coaches. And so it's important to, it's their bodies. It's important to just kind of let them know that, we've got a plan for you, big picture. We've got backups that can fill in until you're ready. Unless you're a 6-year senior and you've got 2 weeks left, we've got time to get you ready and get you going at the right time. And so the biggest thing is just not having a reckless, intensity to get these guys back no matter what. It's not come back and wrestle at all costs. I mean, there's got to be a plan for each guy.
So you bring up the 6-year seniors, and I'm going to assume that's from the COVID year. How have those guys panned out? Because we saw in the NCAA a couple of the 6-year guys in the Division I side of things maybe got burnt out or weren't there the last year or two. How has that panned out for you guys?
So far, really good. Ask me again in about a month. We do. We've got 5 6-year guys in our lineup this year.
Okay.
And, a couple of them have been healthy the whole time, and a couple of them are just now getting back into it. But we expect to have all of them, ready to go from here on out. And these are guys that contributed immensely when they got here and helped us last year, win the NC Super Region Championship and finish second in the country. And I think they're guys that are really going to finish on a strong note here this last month.
Coach, you mentioned you had 20 different states represented.
Yeah, and I ballparked. It could be 15, it could be 25. I ballparked that one.
Sure. I'm just curious, is there a healthy bit of trash talking amongst the guys from the different states of who is the best state in wrestling?
Yeah, it's funny. We do have a couple Pennsylvania guys, and I think everybody knows that's the best
Sure.
state. I mean, it's pretty much that's pretty much a done deal. But we did have some competitive dodgeball the other day. So we had the Carolinas and the Pennsylvania kids versus everybody else. So there's a little
Okay.
trash talk going with that.
Right on, right on. You mentioned you guys with the Super Region last year, you guys are actually hosting this year. Is this your first time hosting a pretty fairly large event? And also what makes up what states encompass your Super Region?
Yeah, so this is our first time hosting the NC Super Region. So yeah, I mean, it's a big event. We're excited, our administration's excited, and we've got all hands on deck to really make it a great event, but also get a big crowd. And we're last year we were fortunate, we had a really good tournament. We broke the all-time NCAA Super Region scoring record last year. And then this year's team, we're trying to re-break that. And so our goal is to get all 10 guys in the finals, get all 10 to the nationals. But that's a very high goal. It's a very high goal just to say, there's 14 teams in the Southeast region, I think. And so that includes South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, West Virginia, Alabama, and I think we have a team from Virginia coming in next year. So really that Southeast region.
Okay.
Coach, you bring up Rich brought up hosting the Super Region, and one thing we like to ask all the coaches we have on is, as a head college wrestling coach, you're more than the X's and O's on the mat. You're fundraising, you're recruiting. There's a lot that goes on. You're raising money. How does your CEO position look at Lander? How do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, so we're fortunate here. I've got 2 full-time assistants. So at the Division II level, that's pretty dang good. I think we're probably one of only a couple schools in the country to have 2 guys full-time. So I've got 2 full-time assistants. I've got a graduate assistant. We've got a big roster. We've got our athletic trainer, our strength coach. So kind of big picture, I kind of just manage it all really as a unit. I really oversee different parts of it, but also delegating to my assistant coaches and my grad assistants and just communicating with them what their role is and kind of what I expect of them. And, I'm fortunate I've got some great guys here helping me, and really just managing the program as a whole is kind of my role. I'm not in the room wrestling hard every day like I did a lot when I was younger. Now it's a lot more, managing the groups, managing the roster, and then again, just managing the staff and how the program operates as a whole.
Not being on the mat every day and going as hard as you did when you were younger, is that an age thing or is that a maturity thing, knowing that there's other things that you have to do? And like you said, delegating to the other guys that might be a little younger and might just want to go?
Yeah, I think both, to be honest. I always liked wrestling and scrapping with the guys, but man, I've been wrestling full time in a college wrestling room since 2001. So I put in about 20 years straight of wrestling hard in a college room. So about 21, 22, I started to back off a little bit. And I let the younger guys, we got an awesome grad assistant, Logan Hall. He was a national runner up for us last year. And he loves to get in there and wrestle hard. Coach Elliott, he wrestled for App State. I think he's 26, 27 years old, loves to get in there and wrestle hard. So I think it's maturity, but it's also me not wanting to be sore and be injured the whole season.
All right.
Smarter, not harder.
That's right.
Coach, curious, back to the CEO aspect of being a head coach. Do you have maybe a favorite or something that you feel is your strength? And on the flip side of that, is there something that you look to delegate first because you enjoy that the least, maybe?
Yeah, it's I think as I've gotten older, like I said, I got my first head coaching job when I was 24. So I'm almost 20 years into this and I still feel pretty young, but having a big picture view of the job, it only comes with experience. It's something I do things a lot different now than I did when I was 24. The way we run practice now, the way I run the program now. And it's not that what I was doing was bad before, but it's just different. I think our strength here is really just building the community within the program. It's developing these relationships with our athletes, with our staff, with our support staff, with our administration. That's not black and white. There's a lot of gray in there. And I think it takes time being a head coach to really understand and evaluate that gray and make those decisions that are going to move the program forward in the right direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You bring up being 24 and, maybe not thinking that you did the wrong thing, but just knowing you can do better. If you could talk to that 24-year-old young coach, what would be a piece of advice you'd give him?
Man, build better relationships with your athletes. It's not just you're the coach and they're the wrestler. There's a lot more to it. Learn more about them as who they are as human beings and what's important to them and what their goals are after college. And don't just stop at the coach athlete relationship. Try to find out more and build that relationship to a deeper level. And you'll find that the kids appreciate it more. As a coach, it's more fulfilling for you, but also, and I know this is cliche, but kids don't care what you know until they know that you care. And I think more and more nowadays, that is extremely prevalent with college age athletes.
I'm curious how you navigate that as a younger coach when you were starting that fine line between coach and friend and being the coach, but at some points I can be your friend, but I'm your coach, so I really can't be your friend until you graduate.
Right. Yeah, it's something I never dealt with it as much because I was always, as a head coach, you have to draw that line. More times than not, it's me communicating with our grad assistants or our younger coaches and letting them know, hey, I get it. Like for Logan Hall, he's our graduate assistant now. He was teammates with all these guys last year. And so now explaining to him, there's things you can't do that maybe you did before. If you guys want to go hang out with some girls or go to a get together or something like that, you can't do that when you're on the staff. And so really explaining that to younger coaches and grad assistants, that's really the most important part, is making sure they understand what you can and can't do.
Coach, coming from Arizona, making your way to the East Coast and to the South, was there a big adjustment from the dry heat to the wet heat?
Not really. I was born. I grew up in a wrestling room. Wrestling rooms are hot and humid, and the heat hasn't had any effect on me. I still tell people, because people in the South, they always complain, especially summer comes and the humidity comes, but I try to explain to them, Phoenix in the summertime when it's like 120 degrees, and that's not even counting what the actual temperature is in the city with all the asphalt and the steel, and I mean it's an oven. It's unbearable. So I like the summers here a lot better than out west for sure. but no, it didn't take me too long to adjust. Like I said, when you grow up in a wrestling room,
Yeah.
you're used to hot, humid environments.
And before you were at Lander, you were at Newberry. Curious what, as I've mentioned earlier, that, to see the presence of college wrestling in South Carolina is awesome. And, one of the things Jimmy and I like to do with this is we like to promote programs to get notoriety out there so that kids know that there are opportunities in places that they might not look. I think for Jimmy and I, growing up in New Jersey, same thing, New Jersey winters, it would have been great to have known that there was places down south where kids can wrestle. I'm curious, what was it? What was the thought process at Lander starting a new program? Was it just something that they were adding to the athletic department, or did they see the growth of wrestling in the South and in South Carolina, where they wanted to kind of get their their name in the hat, so to speak?
Yeah. So our athletic director, Brian Reese, when he took the job, he was at Presbyterian before. He helped take them from Division II to Division I. He took the Lander job, and at the time, Lander only had like 12 sports. And so at the time, they knew they wanted to increase sports to help kind of that enrollment jump. We got a new president in. They wanted to increase enrollment from, at the time, was about 2,000 to, where we are now, around 4,000. And they knew athletics would be a great tool to do that. And so our athletic director, Brian Reese, he has previous wrestling experience as an athletic trainer. And so I think he knew that wrestling could be a home run here. And especially with the growth of the sport at the high school level in the Southeast, adding wrestling, and Lander's a state institution. So adding wrestling at a state school versus another private school, that gave us a little bit of niche there that created something that was unique.
Interesting. And taking over the program, I'm sure you had, goals and objectives and things that you want to accomplish. And at this point where you are with finishing last year, winning the region and having a high ranking now, are you on schedule? Are you ahead of schedule?
You know what? It's
Where
funny. Right behind my computer, I have a Microsoft Word document. My first lunch I ever had with Brian Reese, the athletic director, when he wanted to come meet with me about the job, and it had basically a 4-year layout. And by year 4, and I'll just read this to you because I'm looking right at it. By year 4, which is where we were last year, strengthen the championship culture within the program was goal number 1. Goal number 2, land the top non-Division I recruiting class in the country. Goal number 3, team competitive nationally. Goal number 4, team GPA of 3.0 plus. And goal number 5, graduate our first batch of student athletes. So, yeah, I mean, we're pretty much on pace to where we wanted to be. And those goals too, it's because I had started a program before that I set goals like that. Those are really high goals to set. Hey, 4 years in, I want us competing for a national championship. Nobody really says that. And the reason we set those goals that high is I thought with where Lander was, with it being a state institution, with the cost of attendance relatively affordable, and then also with just the network and the recruits that I felt that we were going to be able to get here and reach out to, that I really thought something special could be built here. And that's really why I took the job.
Mentioned having those top recruiting classes in Division II. I'm curious of what your mindset is as far as, do you just, hey, that kid would be a good fit here? Do you look at, oh no, he's looking at Division I, so we can't look at him? Or do you just, whoever you kind of think is going to be a good fit, go for them? And I'm curious, a lot of the kids coming in, are they talking to a lot of Division I schools?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can tell you as a coach and someone who is out recruiting, I almost never back away from a kid or almost never think, hey, that kid's D1 only. You'd be amazed how many kids I've talked to and I've asked, even though they're only looking at Division I, and I'll give it a 5-minute conversation. And I just, that's something I'm not afraid to have that conversation, or maybe look for kids that maybe only have Division I aspirations, because as good as Division II has gotten, you've got to get some of those kids to compete for a national championship. You got to get some of those kids that initially maybe they were set only on Division I. And is there something that you can say or you can show them that, hey, maybe a really good Division II school is just as good as a mid-level Division I. But yeah, no, I'm very intentionally probably go for guys and go for recruits that a lot of people, a lot of Division IIs would look at and say, hey, maybe those kids are out of our league. But no, what's the worst they can tell, you know?
Right. You bring up the attributes of the college and being a state school and the location. What are the majors, like the top majors that Lander's known for?
Yeah, so we're a typical state institution. So our our major degree options are really degree programs that benefit the community around us. So healthcare, we have a great nursing program, great business school, great liberal arts and sciences as well. I mean, all your general degree options we have here. The only thing we really don't have is engineering, and we do have an engineering bridge program with Clemson if kids want to pursue that. But really, we kind of offer just a full gamut of degree options here at Lander.
Coach, since you mentioned, I'm curious, what would it take, in your opinion, to get wrestling reinstated at Clemson?
That's a good question. I know they had a really good program there for a long time, and a lot of support. Obviously, it was a victim of the Title IX massacre that crushed Division I wrestling. I mean, I think it would take a really big booster. It's crazy. In the last couple of years, what has Clemson done? They went and added women's lacrosse. They went and added women's gymnastics, and in the first year, their gymnastics team they sell out that arena, and they just added their first year program. And they've added a few sports in the last few years, but I'd have to look into it. I think it's been all female sports. So for them to add wrestling, it might have to be a men's women's combo type deal, and someone writing a big check to really kickstart it and get it off the ground. I think that's probably what would have to happen.
Yeah. I'm curious, going back to the recruiting, you mentioned you don't shy away from looking at kids that are looking at D1 schools and, saying, what's the worst they could say? I'm not interested or no, thank you. Curious, in that process, have you had kids that have gone D1 and then it didn't pan out for them and then have come back and said, hey, coach, I think I'm ready for Lander or Newberry or wherever you were at?
Yeah. No, I have. That happens. A lot of times if you're recruiting a kid and you make a certain impact on them, and things don't work out at their first institution, whether it's Division I or it's a good NAI school, or if you build a good relationship with guys in the recruiting process, they'll always remember you, and so you can definitely be there as a rebound option for a lot of kids. Yeah, that's a good question.
Coach, you bring up NIA schools, and you guys wrestled Life this year, very close match, and Life's top team in their division. I'm curious to what the mindset is going into a match like that, and what the mindset's like coming out, and kind of like the respect level between the two divisions.
Yeah, we wrestled them last year too, so I got to make sure I bring that one up. We're 1-1, so we're gonna go for see who takes the lead next year. But yes, there's a lot of respect between our program and theirs. Obviously, they get a lot of kids from all over the country as well. They've got some really good recruits and some really good transfers, a lot like us. And our mindset going in is, there's nothing to lose. They're a really good team. We're a really good team, and we're only going to make each other better by competing. And it's going to draw a lot of eyeballs, and that's good for our sport. You can get a cross division dual meet a lot like that, and to be honest, kind of stole that from Nebraska, Kearney, and Grandview. They've been doing it the last few years as well. But yeah, why not? I mean, us wrestling those guys is going to help get our guys ready for the national tournament. And if we're trying to win a national championship, we got to wrestle the best schools, especially if there's one just a few hours away.
I like that mindset and the cross pollination. I think it's good for the sport. I know a lot of wrestling fans like to focus on Division I, but like Rich said at the beginning of the show, we like focusing on every other division in the smaller Division I school. So I think that's awesome. What are your either in-state or in-conference rivals?
We don't UNC Pembroke and Newberry. If they've been pretty solid historically in the region. And so we'll actually wrestle both of them next Sunday. The first ever conference championship is coming up. So those have kind of been the better teams within the conference, within the region. But really, I mean, life has gotten to where they're kind of one of our main rivals, at least in terms of high level teams looking to win a national championship.
Where's the conference at, Coach?
Conference championship is at UNC Pembroke this year.
Okay.
And so there's two divisions within Conference Carolinas. There's an East Division and a West Division. And so what they do is they take the top two teams from the East, the top two teams from the West, and they put them in a 4-team bracket. And so we're obviously the number one team in the West, and then UNC Pembroke's the number one team in the East. And the conference determined that that the East region would be the host this first year.
Okay. Yeah, Jimmy and I are both from Region 6 in New Jersey, and a while back, there was a small little pipeline from New Jersey in Region 6 that was running down here to Newberry.
Right.
Wondering how Jimmy and I could help facilitate getting that pipeline from New Jersey down to Lander.
Man, I'll tell you, any state placers in Jersey that want to come down with some warmer weather, Division I level facilities, and just not have to freeze your butt off all winter. Come on down, man. We got an open door for you.
Heck yeah.
Coach, you bring up the Division I level facilities. I'm curious to what else the kids can do when they come to Lander. I know Rich and I got some good hikes when I went and visited him down that way. Yeah. What's the life not during the season look like for the kids?
Yeah, it's not. Well, the one nice thing here is Lake Greenwood, which is a huge state park, is only 5 miles outside of town. So a couple of the guys on team, they have boats, they go fishing, they go skiing, they go wakeboarding, they go hang out with the girls at the lake. And, it's nice weather here too. So a lot, like you said, they like to go hiking, hunting, fishing. College football is a big thing here, with us being an hour away from Clemson, an hour and a half from Georgia, hour and a half from Carolina. A lot of our guys like to go to big time college football games on the weekends in the fall and, just take advantage of all the nice things around us. We're about 2.5 hours from the beach. So if they've got a long weekend and they want to go down to Charleston or go down to the beach, they can do that too. So, I mean, really, there's a lot to do right here within Greenwood, but you're also really close to a lot of pretty cool spots as well.
Have you sworn allegiance to Clemson or Carolina football yet?
I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan.
You're a Bulldog, okay.
Yeah, I cheer for Georgia. Yep.
Okay.
A good friend of mine took me to a game when I first moved to South Carolina, so that kind of bought my loyalty.
All right, right on. Yeah, I as I mentioned, I'm here in Oconee County, and one of the number one questions that I got asked when I first moved here and started working was, "Are you a Tiger or are you a Bulldog?"
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I tell people, because anytime I go back out west, everybody asks me, "Hey, how's life down in the South? Like, what's it like?" And this and that. And I say, there's two questions. Whenever you move somewhere in the South, there's two questions you're always going to get. Number one, what church do you go to? And number two, who do you cheer for? And so it's pretty funny. And that really that summarizes, the things that are important in the South.
Yeah, no doubt. I always said, well, I don't really pay attention to football that much, and they're like, well, you're gonna have to pick.
Yeah, they don't. I more people watch college football down here than NFL by probably double.
Yeah, and I had a Clemson sweatshirt that I got I swiped out of the Lost and Found, that I would wear that, and like, oh, we finally got to you. I'm like, no, it's just my camouflage for down here.
Coach, bringing up some of the things, that Southern living, church, football. Do you have any barbecue places of choice? You got your own smoker?
I do. I have like 3 of them. So it started to become a problem, but yes.
You are a Southerner.
Yeah. It's funny. We do every year at the start of preseason, we do a big team barbecue. And so I have all 50 wrestlers over, and I cook for all 50 of them. And then every year at the end of the season, we do a big spring barbecue. And so one of the things, when I moved to Greenwood, I bought a house that was literally right behind campus. And so that way all the guys can come over. We do a big cookout. We feed them. We cook ribs and brisket and Boston Bud and chicken, and it's just a whole buffet. But yeah, I had to get a grill about the size of a small car to cook for all of them. But yes, we do. And then right here in town, Fat Daddy's Barbecue. He's a local supporter of the program. But I tell you, that first year, because I got hired a year before we started the program just to recruit, and I probably took 100 different recruits, probably kept the lights on in his restaurant for that whole first year there.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine some good barbecue is pretty easy to win over a wrestler.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Did you say Fat Eddies or Fast Eddies?
Fat Daddies.
Fat Daddies.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned him being a big supporter of the team. What do the home matches look like? You guys get a good crowd for that? You get the town behind you?
Yeah, we do. We wrestled Life the other I guess last month we wrestled them, had about 1,000 people there. And yeah, we do. We get a good crowd, and we get a good following online too, because our roster, we have so many guys from outside of the area that's the way mom and dad can still watch their kids wrestle. They get online, and our streams get 800 to 1,000 views pretty much on our web stream, in addition to getting a good local crowd as well. But yeah, we do. We get a great crowd. One benefit of having a big roster is if I only got 10 guys wrestling, I got 40 in the stands. They take off their shirts and paint their chests, and they're loud, and it's a great environment.
I was gonna say, it looks like I was watching the highlights, and it looked like you guys had a pretty rowdy student section, but now that you mention it, some of those gentlemen did look like they were pretty ripped up, and now maybe there's some of the wrestlers, but they had their shirts off, Jim. They had Lander written on
Yeah,
their chest
it's fun. Yeah.
Coach, you bring up having, I believe you said either 5 or 6 year guys. Who do we need to look for going into the conference and the super regions and the NCAAs? Who do you expect big things out of this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We've got it. Of what I feel with a perfect tournament, we got 4 guys I think that could make the national finals. All 4 aren't ranked number 1 right now. 2 of them are. James Joplin's ranked number 1 in the country. He's our 125 pounder. He took 4th in the country for us last year. He's a guy that went to North Carolina State out of high school, and it didn't work out, and now he's thriving in Division II. 149, Zeth Brower. He won a national title for us 2 years ago, so he's already won a title once. Took 5th last year, and he's a guy that's got 3 losses in his whole career. And so he's a guy that we think at 149 could really make some noise. 165, David Huntsberger is ranked number 1 in the country. He's having a great career. He was the National Freshman of the Year last year. And then,
homegrown too, right?
Yep. He's from Bern, South Carolina. So he's just from an hour up the road. And he's kind of the golden child of South Carolina wrestling right now. And he's fun. He's fun to watch. He's already got a win over the returning national champ. So I think he could have a finish off a great season. Anthony Iacovetti's out of Pennsylvania. He's ranked in the top 5, top 6 in the country. He's beat the number 3 ranked kid out of St. Cloud. Our heavyweight Juan Edmonds Holmes, he's been ranked as high as number 2 in the country. He was an All-American last year. And then all of our other guys are all right there. I mean, they're all guys that could legitimately win the super region and get a seat for nationals. 33, Elijah Lusk is a returning All-American. 41, Ice and Peace is ranked in the top 8. 57, Jack Tangen's been in and out of the national ranking. 74, Brandon Matthews is another Pennsylvania kid down here that's been in and out of the rankings. We've got a full 10 guys I think could really have a great run. And that's what it's going to take. Central Oklahoma is absolutely loaded, and it's going to take us to have almost a perfect tournament and get a few upsets and maybe get a little bit of luck our way to try to knock them off.
Well, I always say wrestling is way more fun when you have people to follow and root for. So, Rich, we got some people to follow and root for coming into the NCAA. So I like that. And you said you got to have that perfect tournament. You got to have the kids go in and compete. What are you saying to them? How do you prep for that? Do you kind of envision how you're going to handle that weekend, or are you still focused on the task at hand as far as finishing the season? How do you not get too far ahead of yourself knowing you got a big task coming up at the NCAAs?
Yeah, it's take care of business first, task at hand. We've got a conference championship to win. Then we got an NCAA Super Region championship to win. And then we got 10 guys who got to fight to get a good seat at the national tournament. But those are in that order. So right now we got to take care of the conference championship. Newberry, we wrestle them first. More than likely we show up, wrestle UNC Pembroke second in their home gym. And, we already had a pretty dominant win over them earlier this year. So they're going to be fired up to get a piece of us, and that's kind of how it's been all year. We started the season as the preseason #1 team in the country. That's nothing but a target. So you're getting everybody's best shot, and we can't get too far ahead of ourselves. We've got to take care of business here and wrap up the conference and the Super Region stuff before we start looking, big picture of winning a national title.
Coach, with the Super Region, and forgive me if you mentioned this previously on here, is there a set number? Does every weight class qualify the same amount of kids from each Super Region?
Yeah, so the way Division II works, there are 6 Super Regions in the country. Top 3 at each Super Region make it to an 18-person bracket at the Nationals. So you got to finish in the top 3 of your Super Region to qualify for the Division II Nationals.
Man, those consolation matches must be insane.
They are. That's why we're going to try to not have any.
Yeah.
Our goal is to get all 10 to the finals, and we'd have to be pretty spotless to do that. But we've got a good team, and now that we're finally getting everybody healthy, I think that's the goal, and that's what we're trying to do.
And you mentioned Seth. Seth's from Oregon, correct?
Correct, Zeth Brower. Yeah, he was a national champion for Clackamas Community College, and the current head coach at Clackamas Community College, his name's Brett Sanchez. He wrestled for me at Grand Canyon. And so there's a great little pipeline. We got a great relationship, and Zeth was one of his favorites. And so I was happy to bring him over here and, talk about a guy that just really kickstarted this program and getting it to a national caliber program. If I were to point to one guy specifically, that Zeth really has done that for us.
Nice. We had Coach Roden on before, pretty shortly before he was downplaying any talks of going to a Division I program, and then shortly after we sat down with him, he was announcing that he was going over to join Coach Pendleton. But yeah, that's a nice little JUCO pipeline you got there.
Yeah, Josh is a good friend of mine as well. I've had a lot of his kids over the years that have wrestled for me and had a lot of success and done some pretty good things. So, yeah, just like I said, like we're open to the Jersey kids, all those good Clackamas kids. We got a home for you. Could just follow Zeth out here.
Yeah.
Coach, do you go to JUCOs, or is that too much in your season where you really can't get out there?
You know what I did the first couple of years of the program, because we were still kind of growing, and I had that whole year to recruit. But right now it's to the point. It's right in usually the same weekend of our NC Super Region. So we're kind of conflicted there. So I'm not able to get out there, but I do watch a lot of film and, get on Flow and pull up the brackets and still follow it pretty closely. I'm a big fan of giving junior college guys a chance to really head onto a 4-year university and get that great experience while getting a 4-year degree.
Heck yeah. Rich and I are both JUCO guys. Rich ran JUCO. I wrestled JUCO. So we have a little place in our heart for JUCO wrestling. We say first team all JUCO.
What JUCO did you go to?
I actually, you recruited a wrestler when you were at Grand Canyon. I went to Middlesex County College, where John McArdle went to college.
Yeah, I know John. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, I actually coached him at Middlesex.
Oh yeah, great guy. Yeah. He was a good dude. Ended up finishing his career at Lindenwood, but yeah, awesome guy.
Yeah, small world.
Very.
Rich,
Coach,
Final Four? Oh, sorry.
I got one last fun question for you, Coach. You mentioned you're friends with Coach Roden. He's quite the sneakerhead, and then we also just had Coach Erzman on last week, and he's more of a cowboy boot guy. So I'm curious, when you get ready for matches on game day, are you a sneakerhead, or are you a cowboy boot guy? Or none of the above?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both. If it's an open and I'm going to be on my feet all day, I'm gonna be rocking the sneakers. We are an Adidas school, so they got to be Adidas shoes. But for big duels and stuff, I'll put on slacks and boots and a little bit more dressy. But we do keep it kind of casual. I joke around with our guys. You only ever see me in a suit one time a year, and that's only the national finals. It's the only time I'll wear one. So I always kind of tell the guys that's my goal is to unpack that suit once a year.
Yeah.
Answer my question. I was going to ask you if you had a special suit for a gold jacket or something for the NCAA finals. So I like that.
Yeah, it's the same. It's pretty much the same one every year.
Right on. Coach, we have the final four questions we ask all our guests at the end of every podcast. First one I have for you. Are you a coffee drinker?
Yep, but not in excess. I'm about 1 cup a day.
All right. How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
Keurig does the brewing for me. I use the Keurig pods with a little bit of cream and a little bit of sweet milk.
All right. And I'm interested to know, did you have a coffee issue at some point and you had to pull it back to 1 cup a day, or have you always been 1 cup a day?
No, my wife's that one that kind of got me into it. I used to never drink coffee. I just started as I've gotten older, but yeah, 1 cup's plenty. I try to do a smoothie every morning as well, and so 1 cup's plenty.
All right.
Coach, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of R.C. LaHaye?
Yeah, I mean, I try to get a workout in every day. I try to pray and thank the Lord for everything He's given me every day, and try to have a positive attitude and just approach everything with, you know, a mindset that you can get through anything with the right attitude.
And what's your favorite way to sweat?
I go to CrossFit every day, so
Let's go.
I'm kind of on the CrossFit kick. We've got a great gym just down the street, and that's kind of my lunchtime routine.
Okay. All right. Jimmy and I are both level 1 coaches and have worked in the space on and off for quite a long time. And we have that's one of our niches on here too, as well. We do wrestling coaches, we do CrossFit people, and then a lot of other things in between. So you're
Well,
speaking our language.
when you get off, Google CrossFit Greenwood. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest gyms in the country.
Okay.
It was an old warehouse, and it's the size of a small Walmart. It's awesome.
Oh, right on. I will definitely check that out.
Coach, what's your favorite WOD?
Probably.
Heavy
I like
Olympic
doing
lifts.
I like doing the Adam Brown workout. It's just a lot of barbell movements. So I would say the Adam Brown workout's probably my favorite. Anything with running, I despise the most.
Now we're gonna kind of go down a rabbit hole because, like Rich said, you just hit one of our passions. Do you use that kind of style with the guys on the team?
We do, yeah, we do. We do a lot of Metcon paired with strength with heavy strength movements. Yeah, that's pretty much a lot of our in-season training is. It consists of about 20-minute Metcon paired with a little bit more power and strength development. Pretty much all in season. Our training is a lot of that. Yeah.
And is that something, sorry, Jim, is that something you're doing, or are you working in conjunction with the strength and conditioning coaches?
Oh, that's a good question. So that's me pairing with our head strength coach here. And if
Okay.
you know, strength coaches don't always speak the same language as CrossFit people. So
Yeah.
this is a bridge I've had to build over the last few years, but we've finally got something I think works really well with us and really kind of achieves both goals of making sure the guys are still strong, they're still building that high power output, but also, man, they got the gas tank, they got the metabolic conditioning to really wrestle hard for 7, 10, 12 minutes. So we've created a plan that can really achieve both, in my opinion.
That's awesome because, like you said, it's not always the case where CrossFit is welcome within the strength and conditioning community at the athletic level, at the college level. So, and we just spoke with Bill Grundler last week. He owns CrossFit Inferno out in California, but he also wrestled for Cal Poly and does a lot of their color commentary for their matches. And he was talking about how CrossFit is the best strength and conditioning program for wrestlers. It's high intensity, it can be heavy,
Yeah.
you're training, 7 to 15 minutes, and that's kind of really in that wheelhouse. He really broke it down to like how the Olympic lifts translate into like extending and getting underneath like a high crotch or
Yep.
a duck under, all that sort of stuff. So I think that's awesome that you were able to implement that and show the strength and conditioning coach that it would work. And obviously it's been
Yeah,
paying off lately.
yeah, it has, and I'll echo what that guy says. I mean, there's so many guys that when they ask me, if there's one thing they should do in the summer, I tell them go find a CrossFit gym. Like if you really want to, it's not going to substitute powerlifting. It's not going to substitute, high intensity. It's not going to substitute any of that. But if you're looking for one specific thing that can target the most parts of your body that are going to relate to college wrestling, it's go join a CrossFit gym where you're going to get highly diversified, functional training movements at a high level. That's what a college wrestling match is. And that's something I tell our guys and kind of lead by example and just guys, stay active.
You signed up for the Open?
I do it every year. I do it every
right
year.
on. Let's go.
Yeah, I do it every year, but I haven't signed up yet. But I'll get on it this week. Our gym they do a Friday night lights event, and so every Friday night they have all the gym kind of come in and compete, and they rope off the rig and the area, and it's pretty cool. It's a fun deal. The bad thing is it's the worst time of year for me because it's right between conference championship, regional championship, and nationals. Those are the four biggest weeks of college wrestling, and that's right when the Open falls. So it's kind of one of those. Sometimes I have to try to get it in whenever I can.
Coach, I think you just put Lander at the top of our list of teams that we root for. We've got quite a few coaches that we've had on here. We've had Coach Acosta from Life, but I think with this connection that we just made, and me being down here in South Carolina, I think Lander's at the top of our list right now.
Awesome. Well, I'll have to make sure I get both of you guys a sweater or a shirt or something sent over to you.
I would love it. I would rep that.
Do wads in it.
Yeah.
Rich, it's funny you said that because I was going to say to Coach that any coach that takes his time to come on here and talk to us about the program, we're already fans, but you kind of bumped it a little up tonight. Coach, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Yeah, so when we're in season, we have a lot of road trips. I do a lot of audiobooks. So and I kind of mix it up, but a good one that I just got through. Arnold Schwarzenegger came out with a new one. It's called Be Useful. It's pretty good. So I mix between that and between podcasts and then music. If it's road trips, I'm listening to country. If we're in the practice room, I listen to rock or our kids now, they're really big on techno. So I've kind of fall into that in the practice room.
All right. Coach, what are you, old school country, new school country, a little bit everything?
I was kind of raised on 90s country, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. Garth Brooks, George Strait, Brooks and Dunn, but I do like some of the new stuff, just not as much.
What are your thoughts on Morgan Wallen?
I like about half of his stuff, about 50-50. Half of it I like, half of it's a little bit too much.
Yeah, I hear you. Coach, last one we have for you. Do you have a guilty pleasure or guilty pleasures? It could be anything. I know you talked about barbecue, or do you partake in a donut here and there? Do you have a favorite craft beer down there? Are you a Swiftie?
Definitely not a Swiftie. Definitely not a Swiftie. Well, it's funny. My wife hates her with a passion. Like she couldn't even watch the Super Bowl because she was getting so mad at how many times they were panning to her. But my daughter's 10 and she loves watching her, but my wife hates her so much. But no, I'm not a Swiftie. Definitely barbecue is probably one of them for sure.
All right.
We go, you go to brisket, ribs, pork butt. What's your favorite?
Yeah, brisket and ribs, probably both of those. And then, if you get into the world of competition barbecue, I was fortunate. I've done a couple competitions down here. That's a whole nother level. I mean, as meticulous as we are about, whether it's wrestling or podcast or CrossFit, now you've got an entire part of the country, especially in the South, where these people are fanatical about competition barbecue. So that's a whole nother, arena in its own.
What are your thoughts on Carolina Gold?
Oh, I like it. I'm a big fan of the mustard-based barbecue sauce. Yep.
All right, right on.
Coach winning us over with barbecue, CrossFit. So thank you so much for your time tonight. I look forward to watching the boys from Lander for the rest of the season. And bring home some titles.
Thank you guys. If you're ever down here, stop by. We'll go get a workout in.
Absolutely.
All right, fellas. Thank you.